And now, the power of storytelling, Producers Roundtable. Please welcome to the stage our moderator, Susan Sprung, National Executive Director, Producers Guild of America.
Hello. Oh, hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I have the amazing job of introducing you to the most incredible group of panelists. I'm going to invite them up, and they're going to introduce themselves. But please join me in welcoming our incredible panelists. Come on up. Fantastic. So just so you know, in terms of starting out, I'd love to make this as much of a conversation as possible, but we have a lot of women on a couch, and so what we'll do with each question is we're going to start with, I'll throw each question out to 2 or 3 people, but then feel free to just create a conversation that I think is the most interesting for the audience. But before we begin, I'd love for each one of you to introduce yourselves and list one of your credits.
I'm Sarah Michelle, or Sarah number 1 today.
Thank you.
The first Sarah. And I am the executive producer and star of Paramount Plus's upcoming Wolfpack.
Great. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Finn, and I'm a casting director and co-producer on Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I'm Liz Merriweather, and I'm sorry I'm wearing a sweater vest, and I was EP'd The Dropout.
My name is Stephanie Robinson, and I am executive producer, writer for What We Do in the Shadows in Atlanta.
I'm Tanya Lewis-Lee, and I am the co-director, co-producer of the documentary film Aftershock.
Hi, I'm Sean Hayter, and I am showrunner for Little America.
I'm Jenny Connor, and I am the co-showrunner of Welcome to Chippendales, which is on Hulu right now. 4 episodes have dropped, and the other ones drop on Tuesday if you guys want to check it out.
Fantastic. By the way, we could spend our entire panel on each one of these incredible people. So to start, I'd love to talk about, given your amazing talent, you'd think you would never have to feel like you have to prove yourself at this point in your careers, but do you still feel like you need to prove yourselves because you're a woman? And I'd love to start this with Stephanie, then Tanya, and Sarah Michelle. So Stephanie?
Yeah, I feel like, I'm incredibly grateful and excited for the work that I'm doing, but yeah, at this point in my career, I think I've been faced with some I don't know, I feel like uncomfortable situations in the workplace that do sort of, I think, undermine the sort of, excitement and the power and the creativity I do feel, and we've sort of spoken about this before very briefly, but there have been times sort of in the workplace when I have been directly undermined by male coworkers. I have made executive decisions as an executive producer, which is my job to do, and have been asked in front of groups of people who gave me the authority to make those decisions. I have been...
You said God.
I said God. But I've been physically blocked from going into my office at times, and because I was told that it was the producer wing and I shouldn't be there. I had to tell them that I was a producer. So it's real. I don't know, really crazy examples like that which feel like it can. Like I said, the word undermine is a great word that I like to use because I feel like it sums up the experience where on top of all the excitement and the overwhelming feelings of like gratitude and those creative spaces that you're able to step in, I feel like have been undermined by situations like that do ultimately like make you second guess yourself, I would say. So it's still there for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, for me, do I feel like I still need to prove myself as a woman? I mean, I don't think that. And in my last project, I had the opportunity to work with just a lot of really great women. We were a woman-led production. We were financed by a lot of women. So I didn't run into sort of that male energy, but I have in my career. And it's so funny when you come out of the warm waters of working with women and then end up working with men again. And it's like then they talk to you in a certain way, and you're like, oh shit, this is that men chick. I got to deal with this. And so it's really frustrating. And I don't know that I feel like I need to prove myself, but I still do feel that I have to work around. I have to deal with the ego. I've got to figure out how to get what I need to get. Without always being so direct, and that tends to be frustrating. And I don't mean to man bash, because it's not all men. I want to say it's because we did have a few good men on our production, but I do think that sometimes men in power play these games where they do want to put you in check, and they want to be in power even when you are at least equally as powerful as they are. So that does remain and does continue to be frustrating.
I have to tell, we're allowed to make this a conversation,
Yes, of
right?
course, of course.
I had the experience where I was on Girls for so long, and you guys, why didn't anyone tell me my posture was so bad?
Because you're in the sinkiest couch. And Jenny and I are over here like so little and sinking down into the couch.
It's like a little MTV, like real world, like confessional.
So see, the actors know all
There
the
we go,
tricks.
there we go. Yes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
I got you.
I love. I was going to say I was on Girls, and it was a lot of women, and Judd, who's like one of us, and when I was working on a show recently, there was an executive producer, which was my role, except for co-showrunner, also like a 65-year-old white man or something like that, and he like started a fight with me like I was a 25-year-old woman. Like, I remember men talking to me like that, but it had been so long that I was like, this is kind of fresh. Like, it was like, I hadn't felt that way in so long, and I was just like, but I was able, of course, now to be like, oh, I'm not talking to you anymore. So it was a relief, but like, it was so, I don't know, vintage.
Sarah?
You know, I think for me, I have like almost 2 strikes against me being an actor and an executive producer, that I constantly feel the need to remind people that I've been doing this for 40 years. Yes, I did say I've been doing this for 40 years. And I have that experience, and every time I step on set, and in this one in particular, it was like the second episode, and we were having one of those nights that was going all night, and we had an animal, and the animal wasn't responding, and there were all these extras, and I'm yelling, well, I didn't start by yelling, it started by just saying, hey guys, like this needs to be a plate shot, get it, we'll move on, we'll get it late, and just nobody would listen. And it's incredibly frustrating because you do have those 2 strikes against you. And they don't always see that having an executive producer that's on the ground every day, that really knows what's happening on set, is extremely valuable.
I mean, it's so crazy that people are thinking of them as strikes when there's so much value add.
But
crazy.
a lot of times that they don't. And I've recently had the chance in a lot of my jobs to work with really women-led projects. And for so long, I was on a set that I think was known for being an extremely toxic male set. And so that was ingrained in my head that was what all sets were like. And that women were pitted against each other. And that if women became friends, then we became too powerful, so you had to keep that down. And now that I've had this opportunity to work with so many more women, and men that support women as well, I've realized how amazing an experience it can be. But it is unfortunate that you say things like, it was a great job because we had women financing, women production, and unfortunately, I think we're still in that place where all of those departments a lot of times need to be women for us to feel fully supported.
I think we also talked about the extra energy that it takes, like to like ask to get into your office and like
Insane.
Yeah, like where you like the actual time and energy, and then the kind of emotional energy afterwards, where you're like, okay, now I'm in my office and I'm supposed to work, but I have to like get over what just happened. You know, it's like it does take a toll. I will say I was very pregnant for a lot of the prep for the dropout, and like when you're pregnant, men are terrified of you, and I'm not saying like go out and get pregnant if you like,
But invest in a good pregnancy pad, ladies. You heard it here first.
like there's a lot. I had like like I remember just sort of strategically like rubbing my belly a little bit, like oh you didn't understand that in that scene. Oh. And then it's like it works sometimes.
Okay, this is a perfect segue to my next question, which is, as a producer, is it possible to have work-life balance?
No. I mean, if anyone says yes, then A, you're a liar, and B, I need lessons. I mean, I don't know how women could do that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Especially because everybody's balance is different too, and you have to take that into accountability. But at the end of the day, no matter how hard you're working, when a kid falls and skins their knee, that's just nature. They still want their mom, and so you're still constantly torn between both. And we still have to get ready in the morning.
Men. No one says to men,
I think
how do you have a work-life balance?
Right. Well, because we're supposed to take care of the kids and the house and the family. But I will say, as someone who has older kids, Susan and I were talking about this, it does get better. I mean,
much.
Your kids grow up, and then you can go full throttle, and you don't have to worry about all that stuff in your mind anymore.
No, you worry about all the guilt you have for leaving them during that time. My daughter just went to college, and I'm like, I deserve this.
But I mean, I do. I mean, I feel like we might be moving in a little bit better direction in just like not glorifying like the workaholic attitude. I feel like there has been, mostly because of I think Gen Z. I don't know. I'm not a part of Gen Z. There's been a shift I found towards not glorifying, being at work 24 hours a day in Hollywood, which those kinds of shifts need to happen, of just like not just for women, for men too, of just like saying that it's okay to have a family, it's okay to care about your family, that doesn't stop you from being able to do your job.
I think that was actually a oddly good thing that came out of the pandemic, was that everybody was, I mean, I was thinking about it, even like my co-showrunner on Little America, Lee Eisenberg, and I, like we had done a season together already, but like he'd never met my kids. Like my whole personal life was so separate from my work, and suddenly we were on Zoom and my kids were at home, and so they were jumping into Zooms and jumping out of Zooms, and I think there used to be this feeling, at least for me, that I had to hide the fact that I was juggling very young children while I was working, and I'm so over that. Like I'm like, these are my kids, they're coming to set today because, and like and I think we're all moving towards that, and that's a good feeling, because I think for women it was like a liability if you were pregnant or a mom. I mean, I was pregnant on my first movie, and I hid my pregnancy for so long that I eventually confessed to my crew, because I was like, they're gonna think I have a really weird body. It was total vanity. I was like, I don't want them to think that I like have this giant beer belly and like this. I just need to tell them. But it was the thing. Like I hid it for so long, and now I don't think I would ever do that. Like that was such an odd instinct. But I felt like I would lose my financing. I felt like I would, So I think things are changing.
Great. Wayne. Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, too, I think that the growth of women in leadership positions has also contributed to the shift. The pandemic really helped, but when I'm casting and working with a team of women, there's just instantly, I think, more acceptance of the many roles that we're going to play. And when the producers set that tone, it makes it easier for everyone else on the whole production.
And to be clear, there are many terrible women in this business. We're all talking about our best experiences, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I can't let this group not comment on the state of the world. So, in a post-Roe world, have you changed the way you think about what you're producing and where you produce? And have you addressed how, if you wind up shooting in a place that is not very friendly to women, how you'll think about protecting the health of the women on your set? Sarah, I want to start with you.
Well, I just, face this. Unfortunately, there's so many decisions that go into where you film, and you have to take all of that into accountability. And sometimes it's the great statement you want to make, like, I will not film in this place because of these opinions, but all we do is we hurt the women, the marginalized people that are in those communities, when we're there, we can do so much good. So I was just filming for 6 months in Atlanta, and I took that opportunity to campaign, to work on Stacey Abrams' campaign, to fight for Attorney General, to make it a better place so that the women that are there, that are working, will have people that represent them properly. And I think sometimes that's how we have to look at it. Because in a perfect world, yes, we would cripple their economy and stop it, but that's not the reality of what we do. And I think we can do so much good in those places that sometimes it's about, I guess, losing the battle to win the war.
I agree, Sarah, and I think that what's also so poignant about, I think what you said, is like, I'm someone who I grew up in Atlanta, I grew up in Georgia, and my first relationships with filmmaking, television, being on set were in Atlanta because of the film industry. And I don't think if I had not had those experiences, there's a world I might not be sitting here today to be a young 13-year-old as an extra in some whatever Nickelodeon movie, was huge for me, and that changed my life. And the programs, the theater, and what I think is what we forget often when we're talking about location specifically is that, number one, not everyone shares the same political views as what we might perceive that they do, and that's a more nuanced conversation that probably doesn't make sense to have now. But number two is that, you're also giving opportunities to younger women of color, people who are economically disadvantaged, to get them, I think, exposed to this industry that we're in, which I think is equally as important as sort of being a leader, as Sarah's talking about on set, and making sure that you are sort of campaigning and speaking to, I think, the world that you do want to see. But I think that's all about responsibility too. Again, it's a weird sort of nuanced conversation that's really tricky.
It is a really complicated conversation, because I think you guys are right. There are women, you don't want to double punish the women that work in those states. Not only can you not get an abortion or just basic women's health care, you also now don't have a job. At the same time, as producers, you have to protect the women on your crew, and we have not had those protections in place. And so, Liz and I are part of a group of women showrunners who basically gathered, and Jenny. Sorry, we've been in a lot of meetings together, and Jenny. But basically after Roe, we sort of, a group of women in the business panicked and gathered and started talking about what can we do, and how are we going to address this, and how are we going to make it safe for women. I was pregnant when I directed my first film. We had a pregnant director on Little America this season. I don't know if I would have hired her as easily if I knew we were shooting in a place where if she had a health issue, she couldn't get the care she needed. I might have had a moment of thought about that, and I shouldn't have a moment of thought about that. So, what's beautiful about this group is it really mobilized. We are working with all of the major studios now. We have delegates and liaisons for all those studios, and we're trying to put together, put things in place. So if we are choosing to shoot in Atlanta or these other places, that there's a number on your call sheet that you can call if you get into a situation, if you have an ectopic pregnancy, if you have a complication. So how are we going to protect the crew members who aren't in unions, some of them, the assistants, the PAs, so we're working on it.
I have to.
And I also think it's really complex, but the conversation is just beginning. I think it's we keep saying it's a marathon, it's going to be a marathon, but there's so many nuances and things that I think unfortunately are going to just keep happening, and we're going to have to just keep talking. And I think that's also really important, is just to keep talking about it, because the thing that scared me the most, I think, living in a state that was fine with it, but was just that people were ignoring it, or that there was a complacency around it. And so I think just the importance of kind of continuing to talk about it, and what it means for set and the experience.
Well, I have to say, I think it's incredible the work that you've done, because the idea that you're thinking about it and protecting the people on your set in my entire life, I never thought you'd have to think about what if you have a pregnant woman on your set and something goes wrong? And is she going to be in a state where you can't get health care and people have to make hard choices or insane choices about a woman's health, and that she doesn't get to make that decision? So the fact that you're doing what you're doing is remarkable.
And to add to that, I mean, I think people think of it as like, oh, is this about someone on your set that gets pregnant? And I'm like, it's not just about that, because if that pregnant director is in accident in a scout van and goes to the hospital and she's in a state where they're going to choose not to protect the life of the mother because they might endanger the child, like, it's basically all women's health care is threatened. And so I think there's kind of a misconception even in our work with the studios of trying to paint the picture like this isn't about like someone has an accidental pregnancy. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong, and if you're in these states where women's health care is not supported, you're endangering your female crew in more ways than just that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So thank you. I think we all owe you an incredible grit of gratitude.
Not me. I just signed. They really are the ones who did it.
She's signed the letter. She's been
That's
in
all I
meetings.
did.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're right. It is a marathon, so it's going to be a long time coming. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on where you think the industry stands on inclusion. I know we've made a bunch of advances, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Why don't I start with Tanya?
Sure. I mean, look, there have been advances, but we still have a long way to go. I mean, that's the short answer, right? I think, these days, if you have a crew that is predominantly white male, you're doing something really wrong. If you have a crew that's predominantly white, period, you're doing something wrong. I don't see how in this day and age that can be, and yet I know it still exists. I think that people have to be really thoughtful about, and by the way, it's not just for altruistic reasons. I think sometimes people think, oh, we have to do this to check a box because you just have to have people of color. But when you get a diverse group of people working on your set, you bring in different experiences, different points of view. I mean, and it just enhances everybody's experience. And so I think that there's still a lot of work to do. But for me, that's just what I do. I mean, I'm a Black woman. How can I not have a set that has full representation? And what does that mean to me? It means I go out there and I find the people that are best for the job. I'm not looking to find a person who just fits a bill. I'm looking for the best person. And 9 times out of 10 on my set, that's probably at least 70% of color.
That's fantastic. That's really Sean?
Oh, I mean, I think so much of it for me has also just been about, like, as a showrunner, sort of, and especially on a show like Little America, where these stories are, authentic, true stories, and they take place from cultures all around the globe, and how do we support, it's not just like in who you're hiring, it's how you support those hires. Like, how do you bring not only people into the writer's room, but create like mentorship and major support systems so everybody is set up to succeed. And what I love is sort of reaching a point in the industry where you get to take a step back and be like, my job is to support all of these directors, all of these writers, and make sure that they are going to make an amazing episode and their name and their voice is going to get out there. And like knowing when it's about you and it's not about you. And I love the show that I'm on for that exact reason. Like, I feel like I'm there to gather everybody and then to look at our roster of directors and our hires and our writers' room. It's just like very exciting to have people entering the business and being storytellers and having a chance to direct their first episode of TV or star in their first episode of TV. And that's just a very exciting thing. And I see the business moving in that direction. I think it's awesome.
I think sometimes it also takes, you have to convince the people above to kind of give you time. Sometimes, like when it's crew, it's like there's a lot of times in prep, you're just moving so quickly. You're like, I gotta get this position filled, and it's to actually stop and say, am I actually looking at everybody who's available and not just like the people on the list that you guys have worked with before? Because that's kind of how that we get into this sort of like echo chamber where it's like you know, executives just send you lists of people that they trust, you know, and then it becomes, those are the people that always get hired. So it's like that was what I had to learn, was that, because, you know, when I was a young showrunner, I was like, okay, you know, and I had to learn how to be like, no, stop, like, we have to stop, we have to give me time, let me look, let's really try to like find people, you know, and ask around and like get other names and not just like kind of go to the same people over and over.
It takes repeating yourself too. I feel like the amount of times I have to, when I'm casting or I'm looking for crew and casting, particularly when I'm very clear about, hey, I would love to see some diverse options in gender and race and whatever, and I'm just sort of sent the same old lists with the same old people, and there's no sort of thought put in it other than, they're great though, aren't they great for this part, and having to repeat myself over and over and over again. No, when I said diverse, I meant diverse. I don't care if they have no credits. I don't care what it takes. I don't care who you have to call to try to work this out. It matters to us, and it matters to this production, and it's like sometimes people have a barrier up. I don't know if if that's sort of what you're speaking to, but it does, like, some people don't want to hear it's going to take more time, or you are going to have to look harder. And I think that that's maybe what people are a little bit allergic to, is just putting in that extra effort, because we are in an industry that is now. Once the ball is rolling, you have to either get on the train or get off of it. But I think...
But you don't. That's
No, you don't. Yeah. No, it's
that's
all
kinda what
sort
they
of like
tell
smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
I just want to add also quickly that I think, too, the issue with inclusion, it has to come from the top. It has to come from the gatekeepers who are greenlighting these shows, who are financing shows and films, and that they are financing and greenlighting shows that are diverse as well. I mean, that give people opportunity to make the shows they want to make, to create their voices and have their voices heard. I mean, I don't think it's just us here. It really comes from the top.
I agree. I think it does, yeah. It does take that extra effort, like you're saying, and it takes intentionality and willingness on the whole part of the production. If you're going to hire an actor with a disability, then you need to make sure that person has access. If you're going to have a deaf performer on set, it's great if you can train the crew so that they can communicate in ASL and that person can feel welcome and heard. And I think that goes all the way across the line. But I do agree that we're seeing a lot of change. I feel like on screen there's been kind of a sea change, you know, across streaming and features for representation. But we can't let up, because it's possible, right, with the constriction financially that's happening in the industry, some of the diversity initiatives, other things that are really helping support the training, support the pipeline, so that people have enough experience to get to set and feel confident. Some of those things may be on their way out, so I think that we can't let up. We can't look at the current success and say, great, we're done, we got it.
Well, and I think to echo what Tanya was saying too about it, you know, it's a marathon and we have ways to go. It's also about changing the conversation and the way we have it. I was in a meeting before the show and we were looking at directors, and of course from the top it came, well, you have to have at least one woman director. And it's like, well, obviously, but why are we singling them out? Let's get great directors. And so when the conversation changes and great directors include a huge list of women, then we know we can sit back. But until we're still speaking like that, we still have a really long way to go.
Well, I also, I think too, I mean, the thing that we work under Disney, who has mandates, we appreciate, but I think, you know, one of the things is, because this business is so fucked and has been for so long, but it's true, that you have to convince them to jump people who have not been at that level for a long time. And that helps significantly. And I think, and then it's gonna make the business better and have choices. And so they'll say, well, they haven't done this, and you have to go, well, fuck off, because I'm gonna hire a white man who's done it for 65 years. You know what I mean? Like, that has been a strategy for me, at least, and I'm lucky to be in a place in my work life where I can say, you have to trust me, I'll figure it out. I'll get that person so much support and we'll figure it out. But I do think that's like pushing forward the idea of letting people have chances is a big part of like making the world of show business more diverse.
Yeah.
There's no question. All those people have all that experience. Someone gave them a chance at some point.
Because they were a white 24-year-old man. But really, like, I would kill to have the ego of those men, you know? Like, and I think, but I do think, like, why is it okay to give those people all the chances in the world, right? And still, there are talented white 24-year-old men. Like, don't get me wrong, but I do think then we should do the same for people of color, for women of color, and, that's been my strategy, so.
I also think it's about looking outside of, like, you guys were talking about these lists. Like, if you look at, film schools, it's over 50% women. If you look at Sundance, is over half women. It's like there's this big discrepancy between who starts out wanting to make films and is making films and is in film schools and who's working as an episodic director or a feature director. So something's happening in that gap because there are tons of female artists out there who are doing great work. And I think when you start looking and, looking for that, like I didn't mean to hire, we had one male director on Little America this year. That was not intentional. We weren't like, we're gonna hire all. It was because we were looking for interesting, independent filmmakers to come in and who maybe were outside the box of TV, who could work in like this is a beautiful film kind of that you're making and you have ownership of. So a lot of it is these pipelines of not hiring these, journeyman episodic directors who've done 10,000 Law and Orders, and it's like, go to Sundance. Go find the up-and-coming filmmaker who might not have done an episode of television, and then support that person as they make their first episode of TV.
I remember having a conversation about my friend Lorene Scafaria, who's like amazing director, directed Hustlers, and was nominated for an Emmy for a Succession episode this year. But her first TV job was on New Girl, and I was like, I really want to hire her, and I had to basically say kind of what you're saying. I had to be like, it's on me if she makes a mistake. Like, I was like, I'll fix it, And it's
Well, it's
like
all
that,
laziness, right?
Yeah,
And even with the people who are hiring people, it's laziness. It's, I don't want to work that hard to support that person. I don't want to vouch.
Right.
And so it's just more work for everyone, and it's like,
Yeah.
as it should be.
Yeah.
Like, it
Like,
takes
what else
work
are
to
you
change
doing?
things.
That's right.
It also takes work to make good work.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too that people sometimes
Not
I
for
think
me.
forget. Except for Liz. Except for Liz.
It's the sweater vest, Liz.
Cut to tomorrow, every one of us comes in with a sweater vest.
You guys, I have so many scripts under here.
Okay, I want to move on to the changes in the business because there has been a huge consolidation in the business. And as Sarah just alluded to a few minutes ago, there are fewer places to sell, and there's been contraction in lots of different programs. How has the consolidation in the business affected the way you approach what you're selling in the business, or what you're interested in creating, or how you're producing? I'm going to start with Jenny.
Start with someone else.
Okay.
I've been talking a lot.
It's definitely. I've been talking a lot too. It's I think it's made it harder. I think it's just changed everything. I think that's the way of saying it. I mean, it feels like, I'm under a deal with Disney, and I'm very happy to be.
I think Dana's coming to this event.
Right there.
Oh my God, no! But it's like, I think it's really become like, okay, if the bigger company owns these platforms, these are the platforms that you're making for. This is what you're creating for those platforms, and it feels like it limits a little bit like your flexibility, your ability to like have a super weird project that you're like, maybe I can take a shot at this other, it's not going to be your like flagship sort of project. It's going to be this other thing that I'm going to take somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like it's limited a little bit, I think, as a writer and a creator, kind of what you can do with the marketplace. But I'm so lucky.
I too
And
am
I
so
don't want
lucky
you
to
to
be in a
take my
deal
deal
with
away.
Disney.
Please don't
I
take
would
my
say
deal away.
a lot. Something that makes it harder, which has nothing to do with the executives, is because there's so much merging and overturning and all of that. That mandates change, the people change, and so sometimes it's like you sell a script and 6 months later they're like, we want this, but it's on the moon, because that's what the people have been saying. So I would say also there's so much transition, so that can hurt it too, and so you can't keep up.
Yeah.
I also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's as a creative, it's like, you know, you think about how are you going to, first of all, you got to think about what is it that you're creating, and then where do you think it would land, right? I mean, that's how we think about it. And sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to finance this thing on my own and try to, and I'm obviously not episodic, but, you know, where am I going to go? Where's the money that's going to support me doing something like this? So I do think that, you know, it is hard. It is harder because you only have but so many places now where it can land. But at the same time, for me, I try not to think about it like that. I try to just create what I want to create, see what it is, what it's going to be, and then figure out, is this going to be an independent thing? Am I going to have to go to, because I don't have a deal with Disney yet. But I'd really like one. But barring that, you know, you've got to kind of figure it out. And, you know, you don't want to get caught in this idea of, okay, so Netflix is taking this kind of show, so I'm going to create this kind of show and pitch it to, because that's not really creating. It doesn't work, because as you say, one day it's this, and then the next day they've changed their minds and they want a different kind of show. So you've got to just create what you're going to create, and hopefully.
So let me ask you a question. How do you think about finding the right partner for when you're creating something?
Well, now that's a different kind of question. You know, and I will say there are times, I think, when, you know, you're out there shopping your thing and someone puts the money on the table and you're like, oh, that's the money, I'm going to take it because I'm going to make it. But I will say, I do think you have to do your due diligence. There are a lot of shady people out here in this business. It is crazy how crazy people are. I mean, I had somebody, I'm serious, I had someone string me along for almost a year telling me they were going to put $1.5 million into a project, which I found out they never intended to do. It was all about sort of hobnobbing and talking, but that person helped me. Because I could go someplace else and say, hey, I got $1.5 million, even though I didn't really have it, but I had it coming, and I was able to use that to get other money. But I do think you have to do your due diligence and talk to people about who they are and who they are out here, because people are predators, and it's weird because they just want to be in Hollywood. They just want to associate, and sometimes they're not really serious about the game. And then some of those that are serious will try to come in and take over and push you out of the way and take your project, and you've got to be strong and make sure the people you're in business with are good people. And sometimes you make the sacrifice, and then you pay for it on the other side. And I've had that experience too, where I've been able to make my project, I've been able to make the film, but it was a good film, my film Monster. But I do think it could have gone farther if we had had a better situation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just because I was in film 1 million years ago and haven't done it since I started TV, and I'm just wondering, you know, every article in the trades is like, will anyone see a movie again? That's not a Marvel movie. And so you guys have had, you know, particular challenges of that, but it seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to make a good independent kind of film these days. I think it's really hard. Although I think you still can do it. I mean, obviously, I made Aftershock, which, a film about black women in the U.S. maternal mortality crisis, and we got that on Hulu, which is amazing. Thank you, Onyx Collective, for that. So I do, and you know, all of these streamers they're still making films. They're putting films out there. It's a different kind of thing. Will people go into movie theaters? I don't know, but I'm not worried about that because I just want to make my work, and I want people to see it. So yes, I would love for my work to be in theaters, but if it's on a streamer, I'm good with that. Yeah. And there are streaming services that are streaming films.
Yeah. I think also you do not know what is going to break through. I mean, everything, everywhere, all at once. Like Coda, I made Coda, and I had no idea. I was excited when Coda got into Sundance because I was like, finally, maybe we'll get a distributor. Maybe somebody will see this movie. So you just don't know. And Coda started out as a studio movie. That was at Lionsgate, and Lionsgate was not going to make that movie. They dropped it. It was dead. We got it out of the studio and got it made. And so you don't know, and that is the problem, I think, with a lot of, you know, these like, we know what people want. We know they want it on the moon. We know this is hot. Like, a lot of the movies that do break through and catch people's attention and become part of the zeitgeist or cultural shifts are not anything you would have called a mile away. And so I do think it's so important to not be following, like, this is the thing that Netflix is telling you they need, because honestly, nobody knows. Like, nobody knows why a story is gonna catch on and grab people. And so I think you just have to keep making work that moves you, that you feel is important, and just hope that it finds an audience.
But will you make Coda on the moon?
I mean, obviously. Although, like, it would be really hard to sign in spacesuits. I feel like that would be difficult with the, yeah.
But that costume designer would definitely win an Oscar.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Okay, what piece of advice would you give a young producer starting out, or what do you wish you knew when you started your career that you know now? And Sarah Michelle, I'll start with you.
I mean, I think the best advice to give anyone is to believe in yourself, because you're going to get a million no's, but it just takes that one yes. And to not give up and to keep fighting, because like you said, Coda was in a drawer at that point. And when you don't give up, you make things happen. And when you make things happen, that's when you make that change.
Yeah, I echo that. I'd say be true to yourself, and I think don't wait for approval or permission or a roadmap, because it just may not be there. But if you really follow your passion, you're going to find your way.
Don't wear a sweater vest to a panel. No. I'm just being myself. No, I mean, I had when I was, basically what everyone has said just now about not trying to chase what you think people want is something I have to tell myself almost every day still. So it's like, I would give myself that advice, but I had an executive tell me 99% of things fail, so you may as well fail making something you like.
Yeah, Phil Rosenthal said to me, who's, you know, now a TV food host, but he made Everybody Loves Raymond, and he said, make the show you want, they'll cancel you anyway.
Yeah. I also had a friend tell me that being a woman in Hollywood is learning how to be a power bottom, so I'll leave that there.
Can't follow that. She's right. I feel like there's all of this advice is great, and I've got so much swarming in my mind, and I think one of the things that I have to remind myself even now, and I wish I knew when I was much younger, was just to have fun. People will make this so serious, you know? I mean, we all look very serious up here. It's not that serious. Yeah, she's got it. No, but I mean, it's if you are able to make the things that you're wanting to make, and you're on this journey, and you're curious, and you're excited, hold on to that, because there's so much thrown in your way that makes you feel like you need to be in competition with other people, that you need to doubt yourself, that you don't have the money, you don't have the time, they're not going to make the thing, I didn't get that meeting, I didn't get invited to that award show. It's like there's so much there already that will make you feel small, and like you're not doing what you should be doing, and I don't know, that will rock. Just have fun, you know, hold on to the thing that hopefully got you here in the first place. It's all silly. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all trying to figure it out. Every single job I've ever worked on, they're all like Willy Wonka, everyone you ever work with. It's all like Willy Wonka or the Wizard of Oz, I meant to say. Also Willy Wonka. They're all Willy Wonka and the Wizard of Oz. There's candy.
There really is so much candy.
There really is a lot of candy.
They're children murderer.
Children murderer.
We can talk about Willy Wonka later.
They're all the Wizard of Oz. It's all smoke and mirrors, and everyone's just trying to figure it out. And if anyone tells you they know exactly how to do this thing, they probably don't. So have fun while you're doing it. It's not that serious, guys. Damn it.
I would say maintain your integrity. You don't have to be an asshole to be in this business.
Sometimes you do. Occasion, know when to be an asshole. I don't know. What would be my advice? I think I always just put myself. I always found my smartest writer friends and had them read my stuff and give me their harshest notes and took those notes. I always, bring in the coolest filmmakers I know and bring them into my edit room and have them help me tear apart my movie. Relying on executives and studios to give you notes, find the creative people in your life that you admire and involve them in your process and make the best work you can and take those notes and let them be the way that you grow as an artist. Because I think it's about, there's so much pleasing of other people, and it's just make the best work you can and put yourself in any process that helps that happen.
Love that.
I've learned so much in the last 10 minutes. I'm really excited. I have a couple of things that contradict them, but the main thing is my favorite quote in the world from Mary J. Blige, which is, "All we can do is grow." And I do think the part that contradicts that a little is that I think what Sarah said is right. You commit, but I also think you have to sometimes understand, especially in TV, not in features, but you've got to be well, that's not working. Do you know what I mean? Matt Weiner ruined it for all of us for pushing on Mad Men for 10 years and it working. That almost never happens. And I think part of the thing of that is just keep growing, keep pushing forward. It may not work. Maybe it'll work when you're you can take it out of a drawer then. But in TV, I think the way to grow is try something new, let go of something.
Also, check your gift bags. I heard there are Disney overalls in them. So I think we're all going to get lucky today around exit.
Probably mine.
I'm totally kidding.
Tanya's going to get Liz's Disney overall at the end of this panel.
Only in Tanya's.
I have to say, this has been fantastic, and I'm so sad that we're out of time. Thank you.